Welcome back to day 3 of the Pure International Conference. Yesterday on day 2, I really appreciated the panel on open science. It was helpful for me to shed light on how various team members across the university play different roles and related to open access. And there was also a great discussion on how Pure is helping clients tracking assured compliance to OA mandates and funders or institutions. And there was a great discussion on CRIS and IR, how they interrelate to each other, how they support each other, how RIM systems are helping to populate rich metadata, and then a variety of different viewpoints on where certain functions are happening, whether they're in the IR and CRIS. So that was really good to see. And wish I could have stayed up later to see even more presentations, but from where I am here in the US, East Coast, it was 2 a.m. So I'll definitely watch those presentations on playback. You can go in today and look at yesterday's sessions. If there was a 2-track day and you didn't get to the second section, you could feel free to go back in the platform and take a look at that. So great feature there. So today's agenda contains 5 customer-led discussions on their experiences and further opportunities. Also, a few product managers are going to share information today on what's developing on their side at Elsevier. So starting you off, you have a choice between 2 client talks. Either University of Canberra will speak about future-proofing research data, connecting processes and systems, or the Education University in Hong Kong will speak about integrating research repository, Pure, with the Research Information Core Hub, which is called RICH, at the Education University in Hong Kong. So that will be followed by a pairing of Elsevier team presentations. So you could choose to learn more about reports. This session is about out-of-the-box pre-created reports, now available for you in the new reporting module, and a client community operating in the Pure client space, where various useful reports have been shared by other Pure customers or Elsevier staff who used to work at Pure customers. Anyway, that session's all about the reporting platform, and or you could learn about metrics. There's a new feature available in Plum Analytics page that categorizes policy citations, demonstrating a work's external social impact. This talk also reviews the appropriate use of citation metrics and considers how the data underlying various metrics and indicators is created differently between different metric providers that you should consider. So this talk is by a member of the original team that founded Plum Analytics and who today leads the collection and validation of this type of data for Elsevier. Then we go back to a customer presentation. Scion, the Crown Research Institute in New Zealand, will discuss how the Pure portal has helped them share information within the organization, some challenges they faced, and how this additional visibility has helped to raise awareness of the research opportunities that exist. That's got a creative session title awaiting you, a portal to another universe. So very cool. Running parallel to that, you could hear a case study about the Pure implementation at Australia National University College of Asia and the Pacific. So why did they choose Pure and what lessons have they learned? After those fine discussions, hear a talk about the use of the impact module or the impact content type at the University of Edinburgh to record impact, not activities impact, real world impact that was used extensively during the recent UK REF exercise. This session also helpfully shares a pathway for even more efficient capabilities that could be envisioned for that newer content type. Or you could review insights from the global survey on data quality that Pure customers all participated in submitting responses on. Then after that, you could hear a roadmap discussion about the Pure community module. So if you're not a community member, the community module enables an entire set of institutions to operate Pure independently and privately and securely, yet via a consolidated layer, demonstrate their expertise and capabilities together or do joint reporting assessment, whether that be a regional group of universities or education alliance or consortium. Or you could hear from Elsevier's newer implementation consulting team member in Australia, a former research systems project manager, project delivery lead at QUT, on lessons learned and considerations when tackling RIM system implementations. I'm glad to see this experience at one university is now being leveraged by Elsevier across several university clients launching Pure this year. I say newer because he's actually not the newest member. We've also just hired an implementation consultant in Shanghai. So the final two talks will give you an option to review the continued work we're doing to make Pure by far the best system for managing high quality information about institutional research through the further evolution of the data quality tools and the command center. Or there'll be a discussion about how the Pure Write API evolves to provide more powerful capabilities, supporting new use cases and the very granular data security options that we ensure go along with that. So again, in the Connections Hub, on the platform, you can connect with any other delegates. And please also check out the Expo Gallery during the break or afterwards, where you might find some party that has some information that might be of interest to you. So I'd like to thank in advance the Day 3 session moderators for today. They are Brock Askey, the Research Policy and Reporting Officer at Bond University in Australia, and Adam Go, the Software Solutions Manager for Pure, Digital Commons Data, and Data Monitor Tracking Services from Elsevier. They'll be your moderators on track 1 and 2. So that's all I have for opening words of orientation today. So please make your way to your first choice session so we can get this party started. Enjoy the day, and please fill out those post-session surveys when exiting. Thanks.
Thank you, Pat, for the introduction. And again, welcome to the final day of the Pure International Conference for Asia Pacific. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're joining from today. My name's Brock Askey, and I'm the Research Policy and Reporting Officer at Bond University on the beautiful Gold Coast in Queensland. I'll be the moderator for track 1 today, as Pat mentioned. You can submit your questions to the speakers by using the Q&A button located on the right-hand side of your screen, and time permitting, we'll cover the Q&A at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you the first session's presenter, Anesh Nair, who is the Manager of Research Ethics, Integrity and Biosafety at the University of Canberra. This presentation is titled Future-Proofing of the University of Canberra's Research Data, Collecting Processes and Systems. Take it away, Anesh.
Thank you, Brock. So hi, everyone. My name is Anesh Nair, and so I'm the Ethics Manager and Ethics Integrity and E-Research Manager at the University of Canberra. And today I'll be talking to you about our journey in connecting processes and systems to future-proof our research data over at the University of Canberra. And basically we had, this project is basically a joint collaboration with Elsevier and also the Queensland Cyber Infrastructure Foundation, or QCIF. So the Research Data Framework project was a project that we conceived in the mid-2020 when the Australian Research Council came out with a new code for the new code of conduct for research, and one of the key implications in the new code was basically how we manage data within our institutions. So when the code came out, the first thing naturally we all did was basically take stock of what we currently were doing, and when we were doing that, it's sort of like an audit or a stock take. We identified some significant gaps in what we had at the moment and what we were lacking and how we could address those gaps. And basically, all the key stakeholders sat down. We developed a plan to address the gaps and enhance the capabilities of what we currently were doing and what we could do in the future. And from this, the Research Data Management Framework project was just to coin a term, was born. So the research framework project at UC basically had two main phases. We realized that there are two main phases to reach to where we wanted to go. The first phase was basically having documents and developing documents that actually underpin what we want to do moving forward. And so basically that involved information, documents on policy, guidelines, best practices. We had to identify what we missed, what we could develop, what was available on the website. And key with that was also getting our researchers to start thinking about RDM planning. So RDM is Research Data Management Planning. So what we had in the university was basically a Word document that we got researchers to fill in ad hoc at the moment, ad hoc back then, to do their research data management planning on how they're going to do their research and where they're going to store their data. And we had a long-term plan to sort of make it more compulsory for researchers and HDR students so that they would actually engage and will make us compliant with the code. In train with that, we had also another phase, which is phase 2, where we provided tools to support research data management plannings. And we realized that because we had an ad hoc form, which was a Word document, you can imagine it's a bit clunky. So we wanted to think of a way where we could get researchers to actually have a digital platform where they could just engage with the tools. So we got digital survey tools with RedCap, Qualtrics, which is part of our e-research tools, along with our research data management planning tool, which was online, made it easier for researchers to go in there and fill out something online rather than writing in a form and submitting it. And we engaged a company called ReDBox, which is part of the QSIF, to help us develop this as well. We looked at digital note management tools and other sort of e-research services. So it's not just setting the scene, but also giving the tools to support research data management. So while we were doing that, we also wanted to develop other core features of our management systems, and we already were engaging with. UC was already engaging Pure, which is an Elsevier product. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to capture all what our researchers were doing in the ether. Basically, whenever we shared research and those sorts of things, we wanted to consolidate rather than them reporting to us. We wanted to find a way we can consolidate what our researchers were doing, what they were sharing outside, and anything that had the UC branding. We wanted to know what was out there. And so we engaged Elsevier with digital commons data, but back then when we were doing it was Mendeley Data, and now it's digital commons, to help us have a platform where researchers could share their data, but at the same time, with using Data Monitor, DC Data's Data Monitor, we could also do a wide, varied search and consolidate what UC research was out there in the public domain into a highlights page, basically. So we had a one-stop shop to report what our UC researchers were doing. And because, and I was saying, the reason we decided to do this was also because it's a low-hanging fruit, because they're both Elsevier products. And so logic would have it that it would be the best integration points that we could get at that point in time. So with the advantage of having DC data in Pure is we wanted to put UC into the REM driving seat. And what DC data will allow us to do was to organize, curate, and report on public research data. At the same time, as I said earlier, we could have a showcase of public research data sets. So anything that's been published out there by UC researchers, we have a public page where researchers could come in and look at what UC has been publishing. And along with this, it allows us to integrate with Pure for advanced reporting. Now, this reporting could be in all sorts of spectrums, like the kinds of research we're reporting on, the fields of research that we're doing on, and those sorts of things will help with even other sorts of reporting tools that the wider university wanted to do it. So while we were doing this, as I mentioned earlier, we were also working with QSIF with a product called ReDBox. And what ReDBox was a digital data management planning platform. So researchers could do digital data management plannings in that platform rather than having a hard copy form. And when we were, and also at that point in time, we took stock again as we going through each part of the project. We took stock of what we were doing. So we had ReDBox that was concurrently going to get a system where researchers could do research data management planning online, and we had Pure, which was a grant management system and updating the researchers' profiles. In concurrent with that, we also have Informatica, which is our ethics application platform or research ethics application platforms. Now, we knew there were 3 different systems here, and what we decided to do was we started having these conversations. So you know what, we have 3 different concurrent systems going. What if they could start talking with each other? And these were the sort of questions that started coming, and then we thought about a pilot project was born out of this. What if we could integrate ReDBox with Pure and also Pure with Informatica, in which case you get your research data management planning, you get your data management, your research grant management, and you also get your ethics in one box. So by doing this, the researchers would be able to have a seamless transition from getting a grant application awarded in Pure to drafting an RDMP or research data management plan. and then also applying for the relevant ethics approval if applicable for the project. So these were the conversations that got us really interested, and we thought, okay, the first step into even embarking on such a project is to start mapping out the workflows that are involved in these sorts of in this project. So the first workflow is basically the functional view. Now, in the functional view, basically, what we want to explain in this slide is basically a research project includes three main streams. You've got the administrative stream, you've got your research work stream, and you've got your publishing work stream. So the administrative work stream is handled by the administrators and supported by the research office, where all the documentation required by the funders and institutions' policies is prepared and approved. So your grant applications, your ethics reviews, your research data management planning, approvals, and the activity of the grants and the reporting years, it's all covered by your administrative stream, basically the researcher's favorite stream. And then you've got the research work stream. Now, the research work stream is where the proper research happens, where the principal investigator and the research team carries out their research. And on the final stream, after you've done the research, is the publishing stream. And in this stream is supported by another part of the university. Most of the time, in 80 to 90% of the cases, is the library, where the outputs are generated through the research work stream and are curated and published. So you've got the admin underpinning the research that's being worked out, and also the publishing work stream. Now, these work streams proceed in parallel. Currently, with most universities, they always proceed in parallel and are triggered by specific events that happen during the life cycle of the project. Without a proper integration, the handover of the various tasks is manual, slow, and generates a lot of overhead due to the lack of data exchange between the systems and prompt notifications of the different actors involved, because each stream has different players involved in doing different things. So what we wanted to do, we came up with the idea, it's a way to orchestrate the different workflows into a coherent integrated workflow where the data is exchanged between systems and users, and the users are notified basically whenever data is exchanged, so they can complete their pending task to execute the next step of the workflow. So then comes to the next bit. That was just the functional workflow, and then we had to think about the architecture of the system. How was this going to work? In this slide, basically, we have covered the post-award phase of the life cycle, because that covers 95% of the relevant use cases, and the process can be extended to the pre-award phase as well. So following the workflow here, when a grant is awarded by the research office, and it triggers automatically the creation. So what we want to do is, when a grant is awarded, it triggers the automatic creation of a research data management plan. And by doing that, the researcher gets notified that a research data management plan has now been opened up in ReDBox. And at the same time, all the metadata, all the relevant metadata from Pure is now moved on to the research data management plan, so they don't have to reinvent the wheel again. They can just carry on with just doing the research data management plan. At the same time, in this big picture, we also want the same workflow to happen for ethics approvals as well. So basically, once it's awarded in Pure, you get a research data management plan opening up, and at the same time, once you finish that, you get an ethics portal opened up for them to fill out their ethics applications online, only if the research itself requires ethics applications. At the end of this phase, every awarded grant would have an RDMP or an ethics approval attached to it, and they are both linked back to the grant record in Pure. So the Pure record becomes a single source of truth where you can gain information of your research data management plan and also your ethics. So you don't have to go to different systems. It's all connected within Pure. At this stage, the project can be started. And within Pure, you start the project record after you've got all your different approvals. And the project record is created by the research office using the specific feature in Pure. Again, through the transfer of metadata, and this triggers the creation of a workspace. So what we want to do after the project has been created and you've done your research data management planning and your ethics approval, and you start the project, what the project aims to do is trigger a creation of a workspace in digital commons data. And this is the workspace where the researcher can start collaborating, putting up his or her research data sets invite CIs and PIs and other different collaborators, work on the project with the aim of publishing public data if they wanted to. And once they publish the data set through Digital Data Commons, through DC Data, once they publish the data set, it triggers the moderation workflow on the admin side, where we look at what the sort of data they're publishing. Are there any queries, any questions, whether there's any flags on whether it has to be embargoed, whether flags or whether there's ethics approvals, whether it should be public, the sensitivity of data. This is where the moderators look at that, and we can send, we can start sending messages to the researcher back and forth until we get data sets that we are happy to publish on DC Data, basically. So the next few slides are all the work that we've done in the background to sort of have our pictures, basically, all the different sorts of work that we've done in the background, and the screenshots of what we're doing. So this screenshot is basically showing us the work we've done from an award to the RDMP. So from Pure, moving on to ReDBox. So you could see that a lot of the metadata, like the project title, description, funding information, project participants, etc., are transferred onto ReDBox, where the researcher also gets then the researcher will get notified by an email that a project, RDMP project, has opened up in ReDBox for them to fill out. And once they fill out and submit it, basically an ID will be processed, a Pure ID, and a Pure ID will be processed, and you can link it back within Pure. So when you click on that link, it shows them their RDMP itself. And when both the RDMP and ethics approvals have been completed, a project record can then be created from the grant with a simple click of the button. Again, all the relevant metadata will be transferred from the award to the project module itself. Once the project is approved in Pure, a workspace will then be created within DC Data. And the project members are invited based on their roles, and emails are sent around. The external data sources can also be linked to this workspace, and they can refer to their RDMP to see what are the workspaces they want to link in here. Storage services that are mentioned in the RDMP, like I say, can be linked to this workspace to ensure that the research data management best practices are followed. But when they're publishing their data. Once the project members have finished working on their research data, they can then submit a data set for publication. We will also have to make sure that and once they do that, it triggers the moderation workflow. So once they click on publish, it comes to the moderation workflow, where the moderators would then look at it to make sure that the data set follows the FAIR principles and other data principles, sensitivities around the data, make sure that embargoes, all the different restrictions are all in place. And basically, this may require some changes. So what happens is, as a moderator with the middle bit, you can always request changes. It goes back to the researcher to fix their changes, and they can resubmit a new data set for moderation, in which case the moderator can approve the data set. Now, during this whole process of updating and publishing the dataset, the entire history of changes to the dataset from the moment it was created to the moment it's published is tracked in detail and can be inspected by using the audit logging capabilities of the data repository. Events are logged when metadata field or file is changed, as well as when transitions occur in the life cycle of the dataset. Once the moderators approve the dataset, the reserved DOI is minted, and the dataset is published in the data repository according to the visibility criteria. So whether it's public, whether it should be embargo, whether it's a restricted ACTEX dataset, the time deadlines, the viewability will be there. At the same time, the dataset is added to the Data Monitor index to make it available to the research community, as well as enabling the import into Pure. The datasets indexed by Data Monitor then are imported into Pure, where they are linked to the related publications automatically, and they can be associated to projects for detailed reporting. Now, what we want to, it's also worth mentioning is that Data Monitor will not only provide access to the datasets published in the institutional data repository, but to all 2,000 plus repositories that it indexes. So it's a really powerful tool, basically. You can tell that this is a big project with a lot of moving parts. So there are obviously going to be a lot of lessons learned, either hot or not. And what we found that with the key important messages were, it's always very good to set expectations early. From the first meeting, it's always good to already map out what's required and what's delivered, because what's required and what's delivered might be different. So it's good to have those conversations early. It might even be uneasy when you and your collaborators don't see eye to eye. But I think it's very important that we had the conversations early. I think it helped us in this process because we started those conversations early. So it prevented us from going down a rabbit hole where it took more time to retract, to come back, to correct the path rather than just moving on the path. I think it was very important that we kept things simple as well. It helps in maintaining the big picture, because at the end of the day, you're connecting so many different systems. As if you make it really complicated, it becomes a really, really big piece. So it's better to keep things simple, just underlining what are the key connections that need to be made. Once we can get those connections going, it will be easier for us to start adding add-ons here and there as nice to haves rather than the must-haves. It's very important that we had agility as well, and I think I can safely say I really vouch for the QCIF guys and also the DC data guys from Elsevier, that they were very, very agile. Whenever we had an idea, they started thinking about how we could make things work for the big project, which actually walks into the next point of working for the project, not the client. Because unfortunately, I think a few of us would have had the experiences where we engage a vendor, they're there to just tick off the boxes for the project and they're done with it. But in this case, we found that, especially with the Elsevier guys, they were working for the project, really interested in the project rather than the client. It really helped us because sometimes you needed to think of out-of-the-box solutions, which are not part of the box and not about a checkbox. And this is where the agility and thinking out of the box and being able to work with different parties really, really helped. So what really didn't help, what we would recommend not to happen, is basically inconsistent messaging. Keep the message constant. If you want something, just keep it constant. It doesn't help when you shift the goalpost because it really makes it very hard. Hesitancy to ask the right question. So basically what I said earlier about setting expectations early, ask the right questions from the start. It makes it a much easier process. Next thing was working across different time zones, because that was a big challenge because we are in Canberra. I was basically in Canberra. The QCIF guys were in Queensland. You've got a different time zone there. Working with the Elsevier guys, a lot of them were in Europe and some of them were in Australia. So getting a coordination of these things was tricky. We still managed to work. I feel sorry for the Elsevier guys because they had to wake up really early in the morning to have the meetings. But it was later for us, but it was really early for them. And also coordinating with different vendors, because each vendor will have their own, expectations, and will have their own different timelines to follow, and some of it may not be a priority. So I think this was really big this is a big challenge. So what the immediate future holds, I guess within the next couple of months, our aim is to actually go live with the Pure ReDBox integration from the first instance, and also opening up the automated workspace within the digital data commons. So we're really we're actively trying to pursue within the next couple of months. By the end of January, we can get that going. And at the same time, we're also mapping out the Pure Informatica, which is our ethics system, integration points in the UC context, and trying to optimize that flow so we can get this whole holistic approach going. It's going to take time, but I think we are at the phase now. We've done a lot of testing and we're really going to push ahead. So I'd like to really acknowledge the guys from Elsevier, Daniels, Alberto, Michael, and Graham. Also from QCIF, Lachlan, Andrew, Hoyland, Matthew. The Informatica people, Richard and Belinda, and of course my team, my vast team over at University of Canberra really helped me and help us actually engage this going forward. So thank you.
Thank you for a great presentation, Anesh. It was very interesting to see how you've successfully integrated some of these research systems. So we've actually got a lot of questions coming in, so I'm just going to get straight into the Q&A now, so prepare yourself. First one is, how do you flag in Pure that an ethics approval is required, and if it requires human ethics, animal ethics, and gene technology approvals? Like, how is this flagged in Pure?
Currently, it's not really flagged in Pure. So they do. There is a module. There is an ethics module that's not really functional in Pure at the moment where they flag it, but that's why we want to have the system going, because once you flag that in Pure, when you click on it, you can open up Informatica. But at the moment, it's a bit of a manual process. So we get them to actually come to talk to us at the ethics office as much as possible. And sometimes it's manual where the research funding team that sort of administers Pure look at it and go, this seems like you need an ethics approval. You have to talk to the ethics people. So it's a manual process. That's why we want to integrate this into more of a streamlined process. So it makes it so much easier and seamless.
That makes sense. Another question is, how many moderators do you have at UC reviewing the data management plans?
Right now, the data management plans, the plan that we have is basically the data management plan goes to the supervisor in the first step. And after that, it comes back we've got our e-research team of 3 of us to help to start looking at the process. But obviously, because we're starting to scale up, it's really small scale at the moment. We started pilot projects. With the integration that's happening, we started pilot projects to start scaling it upwards. So we've got 2 to 3 moderators at the moment, but we also have to work. We're working on a system where it goes to the supervisors, it goes up the higher up the chain before it comes to us moderators. But we want the subject matter experts to really know what they're doing and how they can curate those sorts of things before it comes to the moderators, because then you can imagine it becomes a bottleneck again.
Okay. And another one just about DMPs. Do all of your applications require a detailed DMP, or are these actually built out further after the application becomes successful? So obviously are they live, and can they be updated regularly?
Yes. So basically, it's going to be a live document. What we did with the RDM with the ReDBox system is basically we will have some minimal fields that need to be filled out, and with the help with the Elsevier, what method that be transferred across gets transferred across, and then 1 or 2 compulsory fields need to be filled out. After that, it becomes a living document. So the plan is to put it together with the HDR, the higher degree research, the HDR students' milestones, where every year when they're doing their annual report, they need to update their RDMPs, and the same with the staff as well. When they do their grant milestones, one of the milestones will be updating the research data management plans as well.
Yeah, cool. That actually links in nicely to the next question. So I assume you're using ReDBox for all of your DMPs, not just those related to the award phase. Do you have future plans to start integrating all of the DMPs? So for example, like you mentioned with the HDR students and linking these back to the student thesis, is this something that's on the roadmap, or is it something that you are already doing? Is it just for the awards at the moment?
Yeah, no. So basically, we do have 2 streams. So we thought about this, and we know that we understand that HDR students may not necessarily have a pure profile. So this is the carrot in the stick for our staff and our research staff, but we also have a separate process going for HDR students who may not have a pure profile, which we are looking at ways of linking those with our staff profiles. But in the meantime, we do have 2 separate streams going. And what we showed today was what we could entice our staff to do it, who are starting their research and they already have stuff in Pure, how we can entice them to fill up their RDMPs and make it easier for them, because it's going to be mandated for them to have RDMPs. And we have built in the HDR process together with their induction process. So that kicks off next year from the start of the new induction system that we're going to put it with the Graduate Research Office, where it becomes part of their induction process, where they have to tick off their milestone at their confirmation or the introductory seminar. They have to do it, and then by the confirmation seminar, it has to be ticked off by the supervisor and that sort of thing. So there are 2 distinct streams, but we do have plans to see how they can integrate in the future as well.
Great. All right. Thanks for that, Anesh. We've reached the end of the session now. So thanks again for a great presentation, and just shows that everyone's pretty interested with the amount of questions that come through. So we're just going to take a short 5-minute break now to transition over to the next session, which will be focusing on Pure reports. Or alternatively, you can actually move over to track 2, where they'll be discussing integrating Pure with the Research Information Core Hub. So we'll see you soon. Thanks.